Welcome to the Bay Insider with Amanda and Ying, where we talk about history, lifestyle, and real estate in the San Francisco Bay Area. Welcome back to the Bay Insider. Today, Ying and I are happy to have Peter Linenthal with us. So Peter is a history buff, a self-described, I think, visual anthropologist, or is that an actual thing?
That's an actual thing.
Okay, it is.
I'm an amateur, I would say, visual anthropologist, but I'm working on a catalog of antiquities from Central Asia that I've collected. I'm also a children's book illustrator and writer, and I did write and illustrate a children's book that grew out of this collection of Central Asian antiquities called Jaya's Golden Necklace.
Okay.
So yes.
And then the other books too is the Look series?
Yeah, those are board books for youngest kids from like 0 to 2 years old. They're high contrast black and white illustrations. I worked on the series when I learned that from 0 to 1 years old, children's vision is developing, and that although you might think colorful images would attract them, actually high contrast black and white, because of the extreme contrast, gets their attention the most.
Aren't you like children colorblind for a little bit? Like up until like a few months old?
I think, I don't know. I know they don't distinguish as well as we do. You know, their distinguishing ability is developing. Yeah, so extreme black and white really gets their attention. Can I, just to segue a little bit, I think my interest in visual art was stimulated when I grew up in San Francisco. I grew up in Presidio Heights, but my parents sent me to a preschool on Potrero Hill in the back of what is now the Potrero Hill neighborhood house.
Is that called NABE?
The NABE. Preschool was run by a woman named Rhoda Kellogg, who collected children's drawings from all over the world. And she found that no matter what culture a child is in, they go through the same developmental stages in their so-called scribbles. And because of her research, her philosophy was to make art materials like always available. So there was always an easel, there was always clay. It was great. It was really a good preschool. And I think that stimulated my involvement in visual art.
That makes sense, right?
Yeah. So it sounds like it was pretty formative for you.
I think it was. Yeah, it was great.
And they're still running that now, right?
It's a different, I mean, it's not Rhoda Kellogg's group, but there was a Head Start program in that. And now, I think now it's a different group.
Okay.
But there is a preschool in that same building.
Program. Yeah, it's been around since 1907. Julia Morgan designed
she designed it.
Beauty, right?
And you've been living in Potrero Hill for 50 years, right?
That's right.
Basically.
All your life, right?
Well, no.
Almost.
Thank you. No.
Yeah, he grew up in Presidio Heights, right?
Yes. What happened was in 1974, my uncle died and he left me his house in Presidio Heights. I knew at that time that I could get more for the buck on Potrero Hill than I could in Presidio Heights. And so I looked and found a house on Potrero Hill.
So that was in 1974 you bought that house?
75.
75, okay. Yeah. And from one of the interviews I saw of you online, it sounds like it's like a turn of the century.
Yeah, it was built just before the earthquake in 1905. My plumber said it's a transitional house. It was making the transition from gas to electricity. So it has gas fixtures and electrical fixtures in it.
Yeah, that's very common in these older houses in San Francisco. I'm dealing with that right now. And it was a property that I'm prepping for sale in terms of changing out the light fixtures. But and incredible views, right?
Yeah.
So you've been in the same house the whole time?
Yes.
Okay. And you said Carlos Santana may have practiced in your basement.
Yeah.
What does a may have?
Well, in the basement, there are acoustical tiles in the far corner of it. And I'd heard that it was used as a rehearsal space for rock bands in the 60s. There's a hamburger and hot dog restaurant down the street, Ganim's, probably the oldest eating place in the neighborhood. It was started by Jesse Ganim, owns it now, but his dad began it. And I heard that Carlos Santana used to buy his hamburgers there before he turned vegetarian. I heard from Jesse that Carlos had practiced in my basement. I'm still trying to confirm this with Carlos, but he's hard to reach.
Oh, yeah. It's not answering.
I see. So you kind of proved it. You just don't have the confirmation on that, right?
Right.
So then kind of moving into what we're here to talk about kind of on a grander scheme is Potrero Hill, where we've already mentioned that you lived for the last 50 years and had a connection way, way back beyond that. So for those people who are not super familiar with Potrero Hill, geographically, it's an eastern San Francisco neighborhood, east of the Mission, west of Dogpatch, which back in the day was really considered part of Potrero Hill, I believe, and then south of Market and north of the Indian Basin, kind of Bernal Bayshore area. So geographically, that's what we're talking about. Definitely one of the sunniest areas in the city. Would you agree?
Yep.
Yeah. And the streets there, a lot of them are named after states.
Right.
Which is interesting.
People still don't know why.
Well, I was going to ask why. That would be my question. Like, why? And they're not alphabetical order.
No,
they're
they're not.
random. So why?
It remains to be a question. There have been several theories. One was that they're named after ships that were built at the shipyards. That's not right.
That's not right. That sounds like
makes sense, right? That makes sense. But okay, so what do you think the answer is then?
I think that when California was admitted to the Union, they just picked a bunch of states that were already in the Union, and the states that run east-west at that time were named for California counties. Those changed later, but Mariposa still remained named for a county. So my guess is that with California joining the Union, they were kind of weaving together the California counties with the California states. But I'm still not sure.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's interesting.
Mississippi, Texas, Missouri, connected. Arkansas?
I don't think they're in the order of their admission to the Union.
No.
So
Yeah.
this
is a mystery for someone to solve. But it is an interesting way to kind of understand the area and how it's segmented over there. And, Potrero Hill has kind of a distinct north slope and south slope, right, in terms of how it's looked at.
I think of it, when you look at it from the sky, it's kind of a Y-shaped network of hills. Geographically, or geologically, it originally was a peninsula, and it was separated from the earlier part of the city to the north by Mission Bay, and at the south by Islay Creek. But when Mission Bay was slowly filled in, Mission Bay for many years was the dump for the city,
right,
and it got progressively filled in kind of from the north shores of it to the south. I think the final coup de grace filling it in was all the debris that was around following the 1906 earthquake and fire. There was just a lot of stuff that completed the filling in process. So now when you look at the city from above, that's not clear,
right?
Because Mission Bay has been completely filled in. But me and a couple other history buffs on the Hill, we have gone down, and when they've excavated for the basement, all of this interesting stuff comes out of the ground. A lot of it is basically garbage from the 1906 period. And me and other people have gone down and dug through the rubble, and you find things like some of them that I brought today.
Archaeology.
Yeah.
So what is that?
This is a portion of a Victorian platter, definitely circa 1906. This is a fragment of a bowl from China, I think. Maybe from Chinatown, I'm not sure, but that was imported at that time. This is a bottle that was probably deformed during the fire that followed the 1906 earthquake, because it takes quite a bit of heat to do that. And most recently, when the new California College of Art campus building was built at 7th and Irwin, they were excavating in the street there, this stone blade came out of the ground. And when I saw that, I was like really excited because we know that there was a Native American village on the shore of Mission Bay. And I thought, well, that could have come from there. I've had a bunch of archaeologists look at it, and it seems it's still up in the air. As they say, we can't rule out the possibility that it came from the Pacific Northwest. That would be really exciting because it would show trade between Native people along the coast. And
wow, all the treasure you found.
Yeah. There was a television show, Diggers, that was popular, and they were scouting around some years ago, maybe 5 or 8 years ago. They wanted to dig on Potrero Hill. So I found them a couple backyards they could dig in. And when they dug, they did find a gas valve. That was exciting because it went back, that harkened back to the time of the earthquake and fire.
Wow.
Yeah, well, talking about the earthquake and fire, which everything, whenever we talk about San Francisco, always goes back to the earthquake and fire.
Everything.
But Potrero Hill did quite well throughout that process because of the serpentine geography, right?
That's another
geology
that you're not really aware of looking at a map. I mean, those ridges of Potrero Hill are ridges of serpentine rock. And serpentine is beautiful when it's polished. It's sometimes used as a substitute for jade.
Yeah, I can see that. Totally,
But when it's unpolished, it's kind of a gray-green color. Since Potrero Hill is a huge mass of rock, it was much less damaged during the earthquake of 1906, and the fire never reached it. So there was a lot of building that happened on Potrero Hill following the earthquake and fire, like this picture on the cover of a book that I worked on about Potrero Hill shows the hill, not long after the earthquake and fire, and you can see building going on. And you can see cows up on 20th Street because there was a farm up there. And Potrero Hill at that time was more rural than downtown parts of the city.
I think back in the days, every neighborhood we looked at, it was farmland or sand or almost nothing, right? Other than the northern part of the city.
Right.
Pretty much. Potrero Hill also seems to be a little far away from the rest of the city. Even today, it feels more remote as its own.
Yeah, it's like its own. Yeah. It's like its own thing. Although it is incredibly close to downtown,
correct,
and the Mission District, which is part of the reason why I think it draws a younger crowd. I don't know if you knew this, but we were looking at the census data, and apparently the median age of a resident in Potrero Hill is 35.
Okay, and that's lower than a lot of the city.
The youngest, almost the youngest.
No, that's really interesting. There certainly are a lot of younger people moving in. I mean, particularly to the Mission Bay area, and there's been so much building of apartments along 3rd Street that must contribute to Dog Patch area. But I wonder what's the older demographic too, because my impression, and I don't know the facts, are that there's quite a high percentage of people that have lived there,
been there
a long time.
Absolutely. Art Agnes is there,
Yes.
You know him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think there's probably a lot of very younger folks, and then the older folks who have been there forever.
Right. I think that's true.
Yeah.
I'm wondering when they do this data, maybe they include the Dog Patch area.
Maybe. The census data that you were looking at?
Yeah, I think that would make sense.
Okay. Because Dog Patch is definitely younger. There's no doubt.
Yeah, and the great percentage of building has gone on in Dog Patch, I think.
Exactly.
I mean, on the hill, some, but Dog Patch, mega building.
And when we talk about like architecture in Potrero Hill, it's interesting because it is very much a mix of there's some industrial parts of Potrero Hill, and then there's the older Victorians and Edwardians, and then you've got a lot of new construction or reconstruction, right? Where they've gone down to the studs and done some very modern building. And I think that was the contemporary, really modern builds was a draw for some of the younger tech crowd that ended up there.
Well, another thing about Potrero is we were talking about North Slope and South Slope. Great views, right?
Yes.
That's a huge plus for people who want to live there as well, in addition to be close to downtown, because you get to see what the
water,
city,
the downtown views.
Right.
You can also see, you can see Twin Peaks from there, right?
Yeah.
Some areas.
Yeah. You can see a little bit of the Golden Gate Bridge and the Transamerica Pyramid a little bit. You can really see
Oh, really?
a lot.
You can see the bridge too?
A little, tiny little bit.
Yeah, so it depends on where you are, obviously.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of, housing cost and desirability, the North Slope tends to be the more popular, more pricier.
Got to mention, on the southern slopes of the hill, there's quite a bit of public housing that was built originally to house people that were affected by the Depression. It was started by Roosevelt for the deserving poor. He had in mind white people that were affected by the Depression. But then World War II started, and there was a need for people to work in the war-related industries. And that's part of the Great Migration of African Americans that came from the South to work in those war-related industries. Although the housing was pretty much integrated when they were first created. Then following that period, there was redlining by the government, and that made it difficult for African Americans to buy property outside of that area because realtors subscribed to the redlining.
It's illegal,
But it wasn't back in the day.
Right, exactly.
I remember taking the realtors test.
It became illegal, yes. There's a lot of things. If you look at the preliminary title reports, right, for certain neighborhoods in the city, and it's like nobody who's not of the Caucasian race is allowed to buy in this neighborhood. Yeah. And slowly but surely, they're getting to remove those things from preliminary title.
It is interesting that the public housing on the hill is in the process of being rebuilt now.
Yes.
And the vision is an economically integrated neighborhood. So, there's going to be rich people living not exactly next door, but on a block adjacent to people without much money. And we hope that works out. A big change will be when the public housing was built. The streets kind of meander to give it a kind of a rural vibe, but that ended up isolating the community from the rest of the neighborhood.
Is that why? Okay, yeah. I was trying to figure out there was a kind of separation right there.
When they were brand new, we interviewed a guy who was one of the first residents of public housing. He had moved from public housing on 3rd Street up to Potrero Hill. Okay. He said he thought he had moved to Shangri-La because it was well planted. There were hedges. His mother had a garden. It was really nice.
And was it there before the freeway?
Before. Right. Yeah.
So the freeway came and made a big difference.
Yes. Which one? Right.
And just talking about the different sections and areas and walking through and seeing, because what they've been doing, right, is as people have been leaving, they've been boarding up buildings and doing the replacement. And my understanding is that has been a little bit of a problem. It causes a bit of a blighted feeling, right? If you're still living there, I would imagine.
Right.
And then a couple of the buildings, I believe, were boarded up, but then squatted.
That's right. And then there was a fire in one of them, and somebody died, I think, in that fire.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a little bit of drama, a little bit of, I know they've been having a little bit of trouble with the finances, I believe, and kind of finishing up the project. But
so how many units are we talking about? A few hundred?
I think it's 300 and something, I believe, and the city can't eliminate any units of public housing. They have to stay, but they'll be supplemented by many, many units of market rate. But there's a scale of what percentage of the medium income you can make.
Right. And I think, it sounds like it'll probably be at least like 2035 before they finish.
It's going to take a while.
It's going to take a while, but it is an interesting plan, the integration and the streets and I looked at it when they were first talking about it. SF, I think.
SF, yeah.
Who's doing that?
I think, knitting together the streets with the rest of the neighborhood,
Yes.
I can only think that'll be an improvement because it's not working the way it is now. It's segregated, basically.
Yeah, it was like going into a completely different neighborhood.
There's some interesting history. Most people know that's where O.J. Simpson was born, I believe, and he, as a kid, practiced in the rec center at the top of the hill. But going back further, Allen Ginsberg lived in public housing. His boyfriend, Peter Orlovsky, lived in public housing on Potrero Hill on Turner Terrace with his family. And that would have been when Ginsberg worked on the poem Howl that was very famous in the history of American poetry.
Okay.
Very cool bit of information. You got to read it. Yes.
Also, Kevin Starr was a state librarian and author of many histories on California. He and his family lived in public housing early on.
So a lot of history. And then over by where the government housing is, just to the side there, you have Vermont Street.
SF General.
Which is, but coming down from the hill, you have, it's what is really believed to be the crookedest street in San Francisco. Right? Correct.
Right. I think it depends. Are you counting the number of twists or the steepness? I think number of twists.
How tight
it's
they are.
The twistiest. Yeah.
It's one more. I remember reading about it. It's one more than the bar, but it's not as steep.
West side of Potrero Hill, definitely dominated by General Hospital.
It's called Zuckerberg San Francisco General Hospital and Trauma Center.
General can be really overrun.
Yes. And that's where you go if you don't have any health insurance. That's the number one place to go.
Yeah.
But they also have a good trauma center.
Yeah.
Okay. When they say level 1, does it mean that's like the most serious one?
Level 1
trauma center.
Probably the highest degree of like whatever. Going back to Potrero Hill, down at the bottom they have the park that's down there that has the largest skate park in San Francisco.
Oh yeah, is it Potrero del Sol?
Yes, Potrero del Sol. And I remember when they were first building that, because my dad had his auto shop down at the end of San Bruno. I don't know if you remember the farm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so the farm was an amazing thing in the middle of the city that literally was a farm. And they had animals. And
you must have been a kid.
Oh, yeah.
There?
I was a kid who went to the farm all the time. And they had punk shows. And they had, it was like a wild and crazy place. And I used to go, they would let me rent rabbits. And I would take rabbits home for the weekend from the farm, and I'd take them back. But it was, that was one of the things that was so great about San Francisco. And there are a lot of other parks in Potrero Hill, right?
Jackson Park is a big park, and that's poised to be reconfigured because I think it's one of the most often used parks in the city. There's always a baseball or a cricket game going on there. It's used by schools. It's used by all kinds of groups. It's about to undergo a massive remodeling, and they'll make it much more multi-purpose.
Yeah, and that Jackson Park, that's like kind of at the base of the hill, right? Like between Mariposa and 17th and Arkansas and Carolina.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
I still get confused with State Street.
Right.
Yeah. I'm looking at it.
Interestingly, though, Jackson Park, when it was built or when it was turned into a park, it had to be drained because it's very near the shore of Mission Bay.
Wow.
So it was kind of a tidal, marshy land that had to be drained, and they had to bring in rock to fill up the muddy park.
Does it still get muddy sometimes?
It kind of, it does.
I feel like I was there one time with my son a long time ago. We're like, oh, wow, this is really muddy.
Why do you think that? Is it just lower?
Water table.
Kind of low, and the water table must be high.
Yeah.
It's not that far from water, so that explains that.
And then you have the Potrero Hill Park, which is Arkansas 22nd, 23rd.
Yeah, isn't there another name? Is that
No, it's not. It's separate from McKinley Square, which is another one that they have the Potrero Hill Community Garden. That's like along the 101 and by Vermont Street, the Crooked Street we were talking about, which is very nice.
One thing fascinating about San Francisco is we're only talking about one neighborhood here, Potrero, and we have a long list of parks. Citywide, we have more green space than
a lot of areas.
I think we're number one. I mean, you can see that why,
yeah,
right?
The list of parks is for the size,
right? The ratio is really high.
Yeah, then there's the Star King open space between Carolina and DeHaro near 23rd.
Crane Cove Park.
Yes.
At the foot where 18th Street hits the bay is a wonderful spot. There's even a beach there. Yeah. Kids go wading in the water. It's really nice.
People have been, that park, I think, has been getting so much use. Everybody I talk to loves it. And I think, well, that whole waterfront, I mean, we talked about it in our dog patch episode, but I remember growing up and my dad was part of the Bayview Boat Club and we'd go down there and it was like, there's nothing. And now but I would look and see like all this beautiful waterfront, like we should do something, the city should take advantage of this. And now finally they are.
Bit by bit. Yeah, it's really changing. I'm excited because the history group that I direct, the Potrero Hill Archive Project, we're partnering with another San Francisco history group, the Bethlehem Shipyard Museum. It's a group of former Bethlehem Shipyard employees.
I see.
And we approach Brookfield. They're the landlord, so to speak, of rentals at Pier 70. And they've recently completed the restoration of Building 12 there, which they did an incredible job. Mm-hmm. I mean, I remember going to that building back in the day, and it was like a big, giant, leaky barn with like the rain leaking in and the wind blowing through. Now, it still looks kind of like an old building from the outside. It's got corrugated, rusty metal, but they've completely repurposed the inside. It's quite sleek and modern. Standard Deviant Brewery opened there downstairs.
They're great.
And Bread Belly Bakery is opening part-time now. And so our two groups are going to be leased storage space on the second floor of Building 12. The space at Building 12 that the Potrero Hill Archive Project and the Bethlehem Shipyard Museum are partnering to store their collections in, we're going to call that space the Pier 70 Time Machine. In addition to storing our stuff, we're going to come up with a schedule of programming that will draw people to that site. We're thinking about a trivia night at the brewery.
Which people are going crazy for trivia nights these days.
Yeah.
Definitely do that.
I've heard. Or showing movies that were filmed in the neighborhood, walking tours. I think there's a city guide tour of Dog Patch that's going on now. That kind of thing, just to bring people there.
Okay. That'll be great.
The history pages in the Potrero View we're calling the Potrero Hill and Dog Patch Time Machine. But our long-term goal is to make a museum, a neighborhood museum there. So that's a big change. And
it's great that they're, helping you guys out with that.
Oh,
they want to bring the community in to do this type of thing.
It is. We're very thankful to Brookfield. They're giving us a great reduction in rent so that we can afford to be there. And they're trying to draw on the makers' history in Dog Patch, and the other tenants are makers of one sort or another. There's a ceramicist whose grandfather worked at the shipyards.
Okay.
There's a florist, and then bakery and brewery.
Is this a building where they have all the pickleball as well?
Yes.
Just checking.
Yes. Bay Paddle?
Bay Paddle, yeah.
Bay Paddle.
All right. We should go inside and take some
Another
pictures.
amazing thing about the building is they raised it 10 feet in order to get around sea level rise.
Right.
So just inch by inch, there's a really amazing time lapse movie on their website where you can see the whole building, which is really a city block, inch up bit by bit. That's it.
This must be the 10 feet you're talking about.
Well, you can't see. There's a basement, garage underneath it.
Yeah, we'll have to take a look at that. That's very cool.
Fascinating. I didn't know that.
And
Which makes sense, right? It have
yeah,
to.
and still in the formative stages, the power station, which
Yes.
is just a couple blocks to the south, it's really just south of Pier 70.
Okay.
That's about to undergo an even bigger transformation. They've saved one of the huge brick buildings,
Which I believe you played a part in making that happen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We tried to save when a developer bought the land and proposed development. We raised attention because nobody had been in these brick buildings for years. They were just fenced off.
Mm-hmm.
And we said, you really should save some of these buildings. They're really incredible ruins. So it should be really wonderful. And the architects that designed the High Line in New York are going to be designing the waterfront area from the power station to building to Pier 70. That's like something to look forward to.
It's so exciting what's going on with the waterfront.
Yeah.
It's been such a long time coming, in my opinion, having lived in San Francisco my whole life.
That's right.
Yeah, so it's nice that that's finally happening. Okay, so I think we should move on to kind of today in Potrero Hill. And, we could talk a little bit about history of restaurants and things like that. But in terms of like the restaurants, coffee shops, bars, I think I had read when you first moved to Potrero Hill, really it was Goat Hill Pizza and then Ganim's, I guess, because that was there as well, right?
That's right. Yeah, I moved there in 75. That's the same year that Goat Hill Pizza opened. And Goat Hill Pizza and Ganim's were really the only places to get food in the neighborhood. And now there are many, many choices.
And Good Life Grocery also started in 1974.
There you go.
So that was kind of like the trifecta, I guess, of the, commercial stuff that was going on in Potrero Hill. But yeah, now I do just have to speak to the Daily Scoop, which is no longer there, that was right there at the 18th Street. Right. And that really seemed like a gathering place for the neighborhood back in the 80s or whatever.
Yeah.
So what's the new place now? Is there a replacement?
Farley's?
Farley's, I mean, I've been there long enough. I remember when Farley's seemed like the unfair competition for the Daily Scoop. But now the Daily Scoop is gone and Farley's under the Roger Hilliard opened it. Now his son runs it. And, that's a center of cafe life on the hill. Every October, they have a pet parade that draws people from all over the city, mostly dogs, but not only, that come in costume and parade down the street. It's like.
And when is that? What time of
year? Near Halloween.
Okay. It's a good time for it.
It's a super fun. Have you gone?
I have not.
It's super, super fun.
Okay.
I remember watching some YouTube or something, people coming down from Vermont.
Yeah.
On those little tricycles. Is that,
I think that, what day, is that on the first of on April Fool's Day? I always miss that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some big event, right? A lot of people go.
Big wheel event. Yeah. They have kids going down on big wheels and adults going down on big wheels.
On Vermont.
On Vermont.
Okay. Yeah, because that's the one that goes
twistiest.
In the twisted street. Yeah, so we'll verify the date, but that looks like a very fascinating event.
And then another restaurant that I know is very popular, Plow.
Yes.
Which has been there now, I guess, for a very long time, but
seems like only yesterday.
I know they're very well known for their lemon
particularly
pancakes.
With younger people. I mean, that really enjoy brunch.
I would like a pancake. It's like, why?
Lemon ricotta pancakes. Delicious.
There is another good brunch place, Cracked and Battered, on the corner of 18th and Connecticut. Within walking distance, there's lots of restaurants, Cracked and Battered, Papito, Chez Mama is a French restaurant that people come from all over to go to.
Has a location in Hayes Valley too, right?
I think that's right.
Okay, that's a west. This is the east.
And they make a great French onion soup.
Yeah, and crepes. Crepes are.
And what about Mochica, the Peruvian restaurant?
Yeah, that's very good too. That's right there on the corner.
Yeah. Do you have any other favorite businesses?
There's a sushi restaurant across the street from Farley's. What's the name of it? That's very, very good. There's a Japanese restaurant. Now that's down on 3rd, Moshi Moshi. That's quite
Yeah, that
popular.
came up in our dog patch as a really good place with great prices.
Yes.
Umi sushi.
Umi sushi, is it? There, that's quite good. Papito is excellent. That's Mexican food on 18th Street. And there's, po' boy Cajun food, I think, on Connecticut Street. Yeah, that's very good too.
And then there's a bunch of kind of gathering places / bar / that type of thing. Like Connecticut Yankee is one of those. I guess it's the most Boston bar in the city. So I've heard.
What's that mean?
Boston. But
interesting.
They're loud.
Building has an interesting history. Connecticut Yankee. It was a first aid building that was connected to a resettlement neighborhood after the earthquake.
Okay.
And then the building was moved to where it is today.
Huh.
There was after the earthquake, there was a need to shelter people. This is in 1906.
Right.
And down in Dogpatch, they had tents that were left over from the Spanish-American War. And there was a whole community of tents. And then they built what are called shacks that housed people for a few years. But there was also, so I've heard, a first aid building. And that later became what is now Connecticut Yankee.
Yeah, it's kind of a cool space in there.
Yeah.
And then the Park side has been around for a long time. That's right by Jackson Park, right?
Yeah.
And they have live music all the time.
Bottom of the Hill?
Bottom of the Hill has been around forever.
A long time.
And I think they have live music almost every single night, even today.
I think that's right. There was going to be a large housing project built right across the street from Bottom of the Hill. And neighbors joined to block that development. And because it was blocked, nothing was built there. And when it came time for the flower market to move, they bought that site. So the San Francisco Flower Market is right there across the street from the Bottom of the Hill. It's a really great addition to the neighborhood.
Wonderful. And
also just thinking of nice additions, it's not exactly on Potrero Hill, but the California College of Art built a really handsome building at 7th and Irwin with a rooftop garden, a rooftop gallery, and it's quite an impressive modern building that's an addition to the neighborhood.
So one thing I really want to know about, and I'm hoping that you can give me the inside scoop, is Anchor Steam Brewing.
What's happening?
I don't know the latest. I mean,
I thought they were bought, right?
It closed down. Mm-hmm. Everybody was shocked and sad about that.
Because Sapporo ran it into the ground.
That's what I've heard. And then suddenly the Shabani guy said he had bought it, and he said he hoped that they would be in production by the 1st of next year. That seemed optimistic, but it was like, wow, how great that it's coming back. Now, I heard through the grapevine, somebody in the neighborhood said they've been trying to get in touch with people that are bringing it back, and they haven't gotten a response. So that's alarming. But we don't know.
That's the rumor I've heard as well. So if you're listening to this, Hamdi Ulukaya, I think that's how you pronounce it, I'm not sure, Chobani guy, tell us what's going on. We're all sitting here waiting for the Anchor Steam Brewery to come back because it was America's first craft brewery.
I think that's right.
I don't know what it originally started. Do you?
I don't know. I know
Fritz Maytag.
Give me a second. I'll find it.
Bought it for nothing.
1896.
1896. Okay, that's a long time ago. That is history that deserves to be preserved. But yeah, Fritz Maytag bought it, 51% of it in 1965, and then worked up to bought more. And so in 1969, he was full owner. And I know a lot of people that worked with him and just absolutely loved everything about Anchor Steam Brewery, and were really sad to see the Sapporo situation.
I think it's not on the original site of Anchor. That building was a former Chase and Sanborn coffee factory. Anchor took it over, and you could smell that wafting scent of hops like coming over the breeze. It was kind of a weird smell, but kind of a nice smell.
I know. Well, you describe it like
It smells
like hay, kind of red hay, but nice. Have you taken the tour of Anchor? I mean, it's stunning inside there.
They were known for their brewery tours. and tastings, and they used to do them. So, yeah.
Yep.
So hopefully that comes back. We're ready to move on to just a couple of things about, like schools and transportation. But are there any other things that you want to touch on in terms of that you think we might have missed, like favorite
Oh,
spots?
just an important spot on the hill. I think we touched on a little before is the Potrero Hill Neighborhood House.
Yes.
Okay.
As a settlement house, there was a settlement house across the country for different immigrant groups.
Okay.
This was built in the early 1900s for a Russian community on Potrero Hill.
The Molokans.
The Molokans. Right? Molokan means milk drinker. That's because they're a branch of Russian Orthodoxy, which do drink milk on holidays when Orthodox Russians do not drink milk.
Okay.
Thus the Russians. They're also
very specific.
Very specific. They also did not want to be inducted in the army. Okay. So that's another feature of their belief. Many of them came to San Francisco after the earthquake and fire to work in the building trade. So there was a big Molokan community on the hill, and the Potrero Hill Neighborhood House was a building designed by Julia Morgan for Russian community on Potrero Hill. Potrero Hill for a time was called Russian Hill.
Really? So what was Russian Hill then?
It was also called Russian Hill. So until that became confusing, as you can imagine.
Russian Hill East, Russian Hill West.
There were different parts of it. I mean, Potrero Hill, some people say, it's the quintessential melting pot because different parts of it were named for different ethnic groups. There was a part of the neighborhood in Dogpatch that was called Dutchman's Flat.
Okay.
There was also the part of Potrero Hill was called Scotch Hill. So a lot of Scotch people. And also Russian Hill. So
and then there's the Slovenian Hall, too, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, I did not know that. That's so interesting.
And just going back full circle to the NABE, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And then that became more of a larger community center kind of.
It's where I went to preschool. And then it became particularly important to the people living in public housing, particularly African American, but not only. And they have a lot of community programs. They had a senior lunch program. Yeah. They had a program for developmentally disabled people. They had a lot of youth summer programs, food pantry, all kinds of stuff going on there. So it's kind of, sometimes they call it the heart of the neighborhood.
I've heard that, yeah.
It's kind of where the north and the south slopes all come together.
Okay.
And there's a festival each October that raises funds for the neighborhood house. And now we call it it used to be called the Potrero Hill Festival. Now it's the Potrero Hill R&B Festival. Okay. And this year in October, for the first time, it'll raise funds for the neighborhood house and for the two public schools, Daniel Webster and Stark.
So did you teach at either of those elementary schools?
Yeah, I taught.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I was an after-school teacher for many years and a preschool teacher. But I worked in the after-school program at Daniel Webster. All right. And it was a great student body to work for because it was like super diverse. I mean, you really couldn't say there was any one group that was predominant. It was really nice.
Which is the best.
It was the best. Yeah, it was a little bit of this. It was everything. And I know that parents who were more affluent, they pitched in to make things more possible for parents who were less affluent, who maybe had less free time or were working more hours, so their kids could participate in school activities.
That's great. And I hope that's still going on because I know there has been a lot of shift in the city to private school kind of. And then there's two kind of alternative high schools in Potrero Hill, right? There's Downtown and International.
What? Yeah, well, Downtown is public.
It's a public school, but it's an alternative type of high school.
Yeah, isn't it I think it's for kids that were not doing well.
Right. It's project-based.
Programs. Yeah. Sounds really cool. I mean, they get to study theater and build a boat and do stuff that would be fun. These are kids that were not so into conventional classes. So
that was kind of the kid I was. Yeah. And then international high school is the school for recent immigrants. Right. And then in terms of, if you're living there, Potrero Hill, with your beautiful views and your sunny weather and your variety of architecture, and you need to get around for transportation, there's some buses, right? There's like the 19 Polk and the 55 Dog Patch.
And the 22 Fillmore goes not far.
Okay.
Yeah,
the 2 freeways, Caltrain.
Yeah, it's not too far to go over the hill to Dog Patch to get to the Caltrain station.
That's right.
Yeah. Go down to 3rd Street and take the T line.
Right.
It is relatively easy to get to downtown, but much like Bernal Heights, it's not as easy to get around on public transportation, I would say, as it is if you're like in the center of the Mission or,
I mean, that's why I was saying earlier, it's a sort of a remote or, on its own neighborhood.
Right? Kevin Starr, just to quote him, I think he said that San Francisco is a city of villages on hills,
right?
And Potrero Hill is the quintessential village on a hill.
That's exactly
very
right.
appropriate.
Exactly right. And you can just go down to Dog Patch if you want to.
Yeah, and go swimming.
That's right, at Green Cove Park. So if you were talking to somebody who wasn't familiar at all with Potrero Hill and they were considering moving to the neighborhood, what would be kind of the short and sweet that you would tell them?
I'd say that it has a village atmosphere in a way, and it has its own character. I think, it's easy to take it for granted, but I mean, it's on a hill, which kind of gives it an identity of its own, and traditionally it was a bit separate from the rest of the city. So it has its own identity.
Vibe. Yeah.
But it also, I think it has some of the best weather in town. When I look out my window, I can see the fog coming into downtown, kind of weaving in and out of the buildings. But fog will often cover the rest of town. But if it gets to Potrero Hill, it's really foggy.
Yeah, right.
It's really
almost never happens, right?
Well, I don't know. There are gray days.
Okay.
But Potrero Hill can remain sunny when the rest of town
and then you can watch it, which is so cool.
To
you
come
just
in.
Look out and you can see it.
Yeah.
Soaked in the fog, and it's beautiful.
And also, it's an interesting neighborhood to be in because, again, being on a hill, when you walk around, it is hilly, so it's good for exercise. It's kind of like, your own gym, just walking around the neighborhood. But in a quite small area, you get different vistas and you see a lot. So it's interesting. There's a lot of variety in a very small space.
Yeah, definitely not.
And the restaurants now are a real plus. And the shopping for groceries, there's many possibilities. Good Life Grocery goes back at least to the 70s, started on 18th. Now it's on 20th, between Missouri and Connecticut. And there's Whole Foods now.
That's right. That's like by the Design Center area.
Yes.
Yeah. So there is a lot of variety. Well, I learned a lot, and you have something else you want to say. So
just something we didn't touch on. This is a bank of the battleship Oregon. There's an interesting story connected to the Oregon. In the 1890s, the Oregon, which was built in the Union Iron Works, was up in the Pacific Northwest. And the United States was getting involved in what became the Spanish-American War near Cuba. A United States boat was attacked, and they sent the battleship Oregon, which was up near Oregon, to respond to that attack. But the Panama Canal had not been built at that time. So the battleship Oregon had to sail around South America to get to
it's a long trip.
The space. And it was a question, would it get there in time? Would it get there in time? And people were reading about it in the newspapers, as it happened. And it did get there in time, and it responded and was victorious in the battle. So it became like this huge
celebrity.
Yeah, I think of it like the Apollo 7 of its day.
Yeah.
So they made USS Oregon banks like this. I've got a straight razor that's USS Oregon straight razor, photo albums, prints.
Oh, nice.
It was like the big star of its day. So there you go. One other thing, just in the neighborhood, I think the oldest or one of the oldest community papers in the neighborhood, the Potrero View, is still going.
It looks new, right?
This is it. I mean, this is the.
Well, this is not like from a million years ago. Yeah. But the actual paper itself.
Look at the date, July 2025.
Yeah. But the paper itself has a long history.
But for 6 months, they've been featuring a page by our group. These are yard-long photos that show businesses in the neighborhood when those were popular, and like belonging to a neighborhood group would be like central in people's lives. This is from the Cannery. In Dog Patch.
Yeah, we talked about
this is from the American Can Company. This is from Lick Wilmerding and Lux Schools, which began in the neighborhood. This is from Union Iron Works. The brick building is still there.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's fascinating.
So yeah, it's been very educational and interesting, and these are just getting the real story from people who are involved in it, living in the neighborhood and been there. Is, to me, so exciting.
Yeah.
So thank you for taking the time.
Thank you so much.
And
Appreciate it.
We will talk to you in the future. Thank you.